Uh, fuck, dude. I forgot it.
God, I wish it didn't look so fucking pasty.
This
Yeah.
is the whitest shit ever. Hey guys, welcome back to Split Screen Media Podcast. This is episode 28 or season 2, episode 2. I'm your host, Chris Blankenship, and with me as always is my awesome co-host, Connor DeRose.
Hey everybody, how you doing?
We're a podcast that focuses on video games, movies, I don't know, comics and all that good stuff. And then also we get into our personal lives a little bit. So when this goes live, hopefully we will have episodes 26, 27, and 28 available on the audio platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, whatever else it's on. And we haven't had those up because of some of the technical issues that we had. But hopefully we are all on track with audio. You can catch up on those if you missed them. Connor, our first topic is the new Switch.
The brand new Switch that everybody wanted.
There's one that the internet so much hype
out for. Yeah, so I guess, I mean, because this started with the Switch Pro rumors, which was what, I don't even know if that was the official name in the Bloomberg report that came out, but they were talking about how they wanted, or that there was a new Switch in development. It had an OLED screen that was 7 inches instead of 6.2. It had a new dock. It had a couple other features. And the biggest thing was that it supports 4K. So it had a whole new chip, and it was going to play all the old Switch games better. And it was going to play, like there was going to be a couple new games that were only going to be playable on this new Switch, which is very similar to what they did with the 3DS. Like they had the 3DS and they had the new 3DS, and that one could only play, like there were like maybe 3 or 4 games that were specific to that system because it was the only thing powerful enough to handle it. And that's what everyone thought was going to happen, and that's not what happened at all. They unfortunately, well, they announced a new Switch. I guess fortunate for people who are still kind of excited, but it was, I think, overall pretty disappointing. The new Switch that they actually announced did have that OLED screen. It was 7 inches. There's a new kickstand, which is nice because the old Switch kickstand is total garbage. There's a new dock that works a little bit better than the old one. And there's LAN support, which 2021 LAN support, thank God. And that's kind of it. In terms of new stuff, there's the storage was a little bit better and the sound quality was better in handheld mode, but that was it. And Chris, as a Switch owner, what did you think of that upgrade? Like, were you impressed? Because do you play a lot of handheld stuff, or were you like, what the fuck?
I play handheld for like Pokemon and stuff, and then I dock it for like multiplayer co-op games like Mario Kart or Mario Party or whatever. So this isn't much of an upgrade for me. Like the screen being a little bit bigger, like I said, I don't always play it handheld, so doesn't really affect me too much. But even then, like the screen itself isn't that much of an upgrade. It's like slightly larger. The resolution is the same. It's kind of not an upgrade in my opinion. I mean, it's technically an upgrade, but it's not really worth it.
Yeah, Joey actually said something interesting. He said that this is the version of the Switch that should have come out 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. Like it seems like the other Switch was like the 0.5 model, and this is the 0.1 or the 1.0 model that we should have had 5 years ago. And I totally agree with that.
Yeah, all this technology existed back then, right? So
100%, yeah. And just the limitations on that first Switch are now, they showed their age then and are now very much showing their age. And I think people were just disappointed because it's not that, Nintendo's never been about the newest hardware or the latest and greatest stuff that runs your games incredibly well. And no one's really upset by that. The problem is that the newer games that are coming out for the Switch don't run. I know Hyrule Warriors, like that Dynasty Warriors Zelda game, barely runs. That thing gets 16 frames per second at most, and it looks terrible. And people were like, I want to play this game, and I want it to play well. So new Switch hardware would allow that. Um, and knowing Nintendo, there might be another hardware revision next year at the earliest. So this is the Switch you're going to have for a while if you decide to upgrade.
I have a maybe a conspiracy question. Do you
Okay.
think Nintendo was sandbagging the first Switch, knowing that they were going to release this product like later?
I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, Nintendo is really the one company that makes a profit on their console because they sell it for way more than it's worth. Microsoft and Sony, when they sell their consoles, it's for a loss because they know they're going to make that up on the games because they put the latest and greatest stuff in there. They put the newest, SSD drives in there. They put the newest graphics cards. It's all up to date. Nintendo uses like 7-year-old software, and then they bank the rest of that as just straight profit, which is a genius move. I mean, business wise, it's so smart, but then you run into problems like this where you're trying to develop new games or you're trying to make your games look good on hardware that was outdated 5 years ago. So, I mean, this is hardware on that Switch from like 2011, I guess, is like when that would have been at its peak. And
Mhm.
it's now 10 years later and they're not updating anything inside. Under the hood, it's exactly the same.
Okay. Do you also? I also have another question because I don't know if they were sandbagging it, but I think part of me wants to believe they were because I think
Yeah.
everyone's out, like every corporate like company is out to, I don't know, fuck over everybody. But
It's
uh,
hard not to have that like cynical mentality with something like this.
yeah,
Uh,
it also like makes me wonder, like with handhelds where you have to worry, so like with a PS5 or an Xbox, you have to worry about storage, graphics, RAM, all that stuff, but you don't have to worry about a screen because you just HDMI it to your TV or monitor or whatever.
mhm.
With handhelds, you do have to worry about the screen. And so they're kind of like pushing this bigger, larger, better screen. And it's kind of like shows me an issue with handhelds where uh this is another piece of technology that's going to age and wear and break, and we're going to have to upgrade, and they can just throw out a new product with a new screen and call it an upgrade, you know.
Yeah. And I've never liked that the Switch has been handheld. The Nintendo gimmicky stuff is probably my least favorite part about Nintendo because very rarely do I feel like I play a game that uses the Wiimote or uses the Joy-Cons or uses where it enhances the experience. Usually it's just frustrating and broken and you're like, why can't I just hold a physical controller and have this just work? And the idea of this being a handheld, it's like, oh, well, you can take it on the go, but then you have to put it in this dock. And then there's just, I mean, like our dock for our Switch recently broke and we had to buy a new one. And it's just one more thing that can go wrong. And I think that's really frustrating.
Yeah, well, you can dock it, you don't have to use it as a handheld, but one part of marketing this product is that it's a handheld console. That's part of its identity. That's it's another factor in making your product succeed or fail.
Yeah, for sure. And the other side of this too, that I think people aren't really talking about as much. I've seen a couple articles, but I thought it was really interesting, which is that Nintendo didn't fix the Joy-Con drift with this new update, which for anyone who doesn't know, the Joy-Cons are notorious where the analog stick will start to drift in a certain direction, even if you're not pushing it in that direction. So your character will just run in circles essentially for whatever game you're playing. And I thought, with this new model that they would try and fix that, remedy that in some way, shape, or form. Um, the only thing they've done so far, and it happened to us, our Joy-Cons broke. I mean, me and my brother, and we had to send it in, and it took 3 weeks or whatever, and they sent it back and they worked. But they are using the exact same tech for these new Joy-Cons, meaning people who buy the new OLED Switch are going to have the same problems.
We also had that problem with one of them. It was really bad in Mario Kart because all of a sudden you're going straight and you don't even touch the analog stick and you just
You just
swerve
whoop.
right into a wall. Yeah.
Yep.
really frustrating. Um, but I'm gonna. It's kind of like if you take the Joy Cons out of the console, they're upgrading just that base console, and then the Joy Cons are interchangeable no matter what console you have, which is, a good thing, I think. Have they admitted to a problem with their Joy Cons drifting like that?
They haven't really, again, I could be wrong. They haven't made a massive public statement or anything. I know that you can turn, like, it's free to send them in to Nintendo to fix, but there hasn't been a remedy of like, hey, you can go. I know Microsoft used to do this with some of their stuff, but they're like, hey, if you can prove that you bought a Switch or you bought it from some retailer, you can go pick up new Joy Cons, like the new version of the Joy Cons. You get them for free, as long as you have the old Switch. They're not doing anything like that. Um, which I can understand them not doing that now, but to not fix the Joy-Cons on the updated version of the Switch blows my mind.
I think so. Part of me is looking at this from a PR perspective, right? If you fix the Joy Cons and you say, hey, we're upgrading the Switch, and it comes with Joy Cons that don't fucking break, that's not really part of your upgrade. That's just making it the right, like the good product that's going to work.
But they did that with the kickstand. I
That's
mean,
that's true. But I guess the kickstand was a design like flaw. You know, the Joy-Con drift is something that wasn't intended, and it's more of a quality like thing.
yeah.
You can say you're redesigning the kickstand, to make it a little bit better, but you can't really be like, well, we fucked up the Joy-Con, so, and they only come with the new Switch, so buy the new Switch. It just seems kind of weird. It seems a little off.
They might not be able to say anything about that right now because it's still there's a legal battle going on because there's a class action lawsuit against Nintendo about these Joy-Cons. Um, so they might not be able to be like, hey, our old ones suck and you can get new ones that
Who's
don't
suing?
suck.
Who's suing them over this?
So it's a class action lawsuit. So
Yeah.
anyone who's been affected can. I don't remember who the actual the company or the lawyers who are actually suing them.
Oh,
But basically, if you can, add your name to this list if you've been affected by it. But I mean, those, even if they win, you get such little money from
yeah.
it that it's really not worth it.
Yeah, class actions pay out like notoriously less than, but also like you can't take on Nintendo by yourself,
No, no, absolutely not.
especially over a Joy-Con. You'll pay like 100 times more in lawyers' fees and court fees.
I'm picturing Nintendo from that Social Network. I've never actually seen the Social Network, but I know that clip of like Andrew Garfield and he's leaning over to Mark Zuckerberg and he's like, "You better lawyer up, asshole." Like that's what I picture Nintendo doing.
You better lawyer up, asshole, because I'm not coming back for 30%. I'm coming back for everything.
But yeah, I'm personally very disappointed with this new iteration. I don't even own a Switch. The Switch that we have is my brother's. So like even for someone who doesn't have one and would be like, "Oh, this would be an interesting purchase," like if they made a new model, I'm
Mhm.
still disappointed with what they came out with here.
So I have a question because I was thinking about this and I was like, okay, as a person who already owns a Switch, this is not enough of an upgrade for me to sell or trade in my current Switch and buy a whole new one. Even if I wanted to sell or trade in my current Switch, like to get some kind of credit towards the new Switch, that's not enough of an incentive in my mind, you know. Um, but as somebody who doesn't have a Switch, uh, if you were in the market of getting one, where would you lean? And I guess part of that comes with the price difference, which I don't think we've mentioned. Um,
Yeah, we haven't brought that up yet. So
but which way would you lean? And then also we can get into the price.
yeah, sure. So the price, just real quick, is it's 300 for the current Switch, and it'll be 350 for the new Switch. Um, I don't know. As someone, I would like to have my own Switch for when Dread comes out, Metroid Dread, for anyone who doesn't know. I would
So you
like to be
get
able to
100% access to it.
exactly. No, exactly. Like I want to be able to, I want to set it up wherever I want. I want to have my own Switch, my own profile. I'd like to do that. So if I do decide to get one, I mean, I'm definitely going to spend that extra $50 and get the new Switch. I think if you have a Switch now, this is a pointless upgrade. There will be a new Switch in a year or two that is going to have better specs, or there'll be a whole new Nintendo console. Like they'll be the next thing. I don't think this is worth it for you at all. Like Chris or anyone else who has a Switch, this is not worth it. But for me, I'm like, if I'm gonna get one, I'm gonna, if I'm already swimming, I'm gonna dive all the way in. I'm gonna buy the extra $50 just to get that nicer OLED. Because I mean, an OLED screen is definitely gonna make a difference in picture quality for handheld mode. Like that's a fact.
Do you plan on playing Metroid Dread in handheld or?
Oh, absolutely not.
Docking it. Okay.
That's the other thing too, is that I know a lot of people play it portable. I can count on my hand the number of times I've played the Switch portable. Like I really, besides Pokemon, which sometimes I'll do passively, I always put it in the dock because the games don't run well when it's in handheld mode. The frame rate gets cut significantly.
So you don't take it with you, like, like it's one thing to like play it docked in your room versus like laying on your bed playing it handheld, but you don't, like, for instance, before COVID, I would take mine on the train to work. You don't do anything like that.
Well, in a city like where you are, I think it makes sense because you are able to, while you're traveling, you can play it handheld, you can like do stuff. The problem is that everywhere I go, I'm in a car, so I'm the one driving. I can't play the Switch.
You could.
I could, I guess. I have it like down here.
If you had the Tesla, you could dock it to your like center console, maybe.
Oh, that's so true. Oh, that's my dream. So first of all, they need to put like GameCube games on there too, so I can get all the backwards compatibility stuff, and then I want to hook it up to my Tesla and have it drive me around.
And you're playing Switch.
I'm playing Switch. That's the American dream. But if I do get one, it will be that. If I just play it on my brother's, then no, I'm not gonna. He told me already. He's like, I'm not upgrading to that. Spending an extra $100 after I trade the other one in. Like, fuck that.
Is the trade-in for current Switches $250?
We could probably sell it for around $250. If he also threw in like one or two games that he doesn't use, we'd probably get like $200, $250. So, by my most liberal of estimates, it would probably be around $100 to upgrade for most people. But they're also going to get, the value is going to go down if the Facebook marketplace is just flooded with people's old shitty Switches.
That's true. Well, I think the fact that it's not much of an upgrade will keep the pre-owned market, from tanking a little bit.
Yeah. But I'll say this too, Chris, because your situation may be different from someone else's. Like if you are like Chris and you play more handheld mode, then maybe this is worth it, because that picture is going to look way better. OLED versus LCD is night and day. So if that's really all you do, and you don't even like, the dock is just collecting dust somewhere in your room, like this might be worth it. But if you play exclusively docked or whatever, don't fucking bother.
Yeah, 100%. If you play docked like all the time, don't bother. I would say, Connor, if someone's in your position where you might be looking at a new one, definitely like spend the extra $50. Make sure you're getting a better quality product, because you deserve it.
I'm worth it.
Yeah.
Well, it's not like I'm gonna buy it and then the next day Nintendo's like, the Switch 2. Like it's gonna be a while before they announce something else. So, although, I did feel like I kind of got burned on the One X, because I got that thing in my head. I was like, I really want a One X. I want to upgrade from my original Xbox. And then like a year later, the Series X came out, and I'm like, this was a fucking waste of money. So,
didn't they have the Xbox Slim before the One X?
Yeah, so they had like the white model, which was the One S, and then the One X came after that.
Yeah.
But the Series, God, Microsoft sucks. The Series S and the Series X came out at the same time.
Yeah.
God, those fucking names, dude.
Yeah, that's bad.
The worst. I mean, like even, if you're gonna name it something else, just do the Nintendo thing and like name it something different every time. You get GameCube and then Wii and then Switch, and I mean Wii U was a huge failure for that reason. But like, just name it something else.
Do they have a new name for the upgraded Switch?
It's literally called Switch OLED model. That's
Oh,
that's the
okay.
official. If you go on Nintendo's website right now, that's what it's called.
Okay.
It's the Nintendo Switch, the Switch Lite, which is a huge waste of money. I've never understood that thing. They were like, it's a portable Switch. And I'm like, yeah.
I forgot that existed, to be honest.
So it's a Switch that's portable, quote unquote, and you can't dock it and it doesn't connect to your TV.
And the Joy-Cons are connected, right?
Yeah, they're fused to the thing. It's like one thing. So
curious on the numbers of that, how well that sold.
I'm sure people are like, oh my God, a portable Switch. But yeah, and then the newest one is going to be the OLED model.
Okay. We haven't talked about the kickstand too much. The differences.
Yeah, so that if you play a lot of tabletop Switch, if you just like put it on the thing, then this is definitely going to be worth it, because that original, I mean, almost every Switch I see on the marketplace, that stand is broken because it was this tiny little sliver. I don't know if we can throw up a picture or whatever, but there's a tiny little sliver on the back and it doesn't feel stable at all. And people would knock it over and it would just snap in half. But this one, the whole back is a kickstand. So it's definitely going to be more stable if that's how you like to play your games.
I've played it with like the tabletop with the tiny kickstand that's on mine. Just because I don't know, I was at work a couple years ago and just that's what I wanted to do. I don't know. I don't think enough people use that feature. Like, first off, the flimsy kickstand sucks, right? Like, I haven't broken mine yet, thankfully, but I can see how people would. It's literally like super tiny. This new one, it's all the way across the back of the console, and it allows for more degree of like the angle at which you can put your Switch screen. So it's like, I think the little one, it just goes to one, I don't know how many degrees it is, but it just clicks in and then that's how you set it. But this one you get like a couple different degrees that you can like angle your screen better. I don't know.
No, for sure. It's definitely like, it's, you know, whatever your situation is, the viewing angles are going to be better. But I couldn't agree more with you. It is a niche market of people that fucking use that stand or play tabletop mode. I you know, I don't understand, like, just hold it if you're going to have it out of the dock. I don't know why you would like put it down and then play like this. But it's interesting. It's very interesting that was such a big complaint, that was the complaint, that not that the games don't run well, but they were like, people are up in arms about this kickstand. We got to change it.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it might have been like just another, hey, let's put another design upgrade on the list of things on this new console, you know.
Yeah, no,
they needed a couple more bullet points.
I think they did, and honestly they were like, what's the cheapest thing we can change? It's like, well, the design is free, essentially. We got a whole R&D team that can just mock up something new that is a better kickstand. Speakers are dirt cheap. They're like, oh, we'll just throw in a slightly better speaker. That's easy.
The storage
is, I mean, that's not even, that's like a micro SD card that they put in there. That's nothing. You get that shit at Best Buy for $2.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, all the parts that they're replacing are so cheap that, and this is, I guarantee you, this thing goes up for pre-order, immediately sold out. There's no way that it's not going to sell out day one.
You think there's enough demand?
It's a Nintendo product, so yeah.
Okay.
Anything else, I would say no. Like if Microsoft was like, hey, we have a new model that, you know, the only games you can play on it are Kinect, and like it you know, explodes after 38 hours of use, no one would buy it. But because it's a Nintendo thing, there's a certain amount of collectability to it that, you know, people love, and that people are like, I know this is going to be worth a lot of money in the future. Which I think might be the perfect segue to our next topic. Which is the Super Mario 64 Speaking
Oh
of
yeah.
collectability, that's sold for an obscene amount of money. Do we want to get into that?
Yeah, let's get into it.
Okay. Should I like give a little bit of back?
So I don't actually know much about this other than the fact that it sold for an ass ton of money.
Yeah, so it sold for an insane amount.
What's
Basically,
the product itself?
so it is a sealed copy of Super Mario 64 for the Nintendo 64. It was rated by Wata, who does like anytime you see a game in a case that has a rating on it based on how it looks, is done by Wata, which is the company. It had a 9.8, which is near perfect, 9.8 out of 10. And yeah, it sold for $1.5 million, I think either yesterday or 2 days ago. And it is now the most expensive video game ever to be sold. I believe the previous title was a sealed copy, like a limited edition sealed copy of Legend of Zelda for the NES, which sold for around, it was like 900,000. So this is the first game to crack a million.
That cracked a million by a lot.
Cracked a million by a lot. I think it's going to be a long time before this is beaten by anything. And it raised a lot of questions as to why someone would pay so much for this. Super Mario 64 is not a rare game, first of all. I mean, like the it being sealed is relatively unknown. I mean, like there's not a ton of those out there, but even with that, it is not worth that much money.
Isn't the rating come into factor? Isn't like I feel like a long like I don't know, maybe a month or two ago, I like was seeing like a YouTube video or something on this, and like the sealed 64s, to have a rating like that high is really rare.
Yeah, that's definitely a factor. I mean, it's a huge factor in comics. Like it's the difference between, Amazing Fantasy 15, which is the first appearance of Spider-Man. A 7.4 of that goes for $8,000. And then the 9 point, I think it was like a 9.7, which is the highest rated one in existence right now, went for 2 million. So there is a huge difference between even just like 1 point on the grading scale in terms of profit that you can make from something like that. But not only were people skeptical of like why someone bought this, because it wasn't someone who was interested in collecting games because they like games. It was someone who saw that this thing was expensive and just wanted to add it to their collection because it's worth a lot of money. And I think this brings into question a much bigger point and a huge thing in retro gaming right now, which is how much these games cost. And this really started with COVID and has kind of ended here. and I think this is going to be a huge shift in this. Well, not a shift, but it's going to continue even further in that direction with these games being so expensive.
Yeah, it's interesting that he wasn't, or he or she, I don't know who bought it, but it's interesting that they weren't a collector of retro games. I think what happens a lot with collectibles, especially really, really, really expensive and rare ones, is people will buy them for the collectible aspect, but also knowing, hey, this is probably going to appreciate down the road. And
Yeah,
they're in the market of collecting collectibles, not necessarily collecting one type of collectible.
no, this is, I have so much money and I want to show off my collection of stuff and I just want to have the most expensive thing that I can own.
Yeah.
But I think, I mean, if you've already collected a bunch of stuff, this is probably great news for you. Because this adds value to everything that you own. I mean, it reminds me of the Logan Paul situation where he like had the Charizard necklace or whatever with the Charizard card in it, and then he was like, "This is worth $1 million," and then it skyrocketed the price of those Pokemon cards.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up because, I mean, Pokemon cards have always been a collectible kind of thing, and Logan Paul bought one. I'm sure like there's some nostalgia because he's in that age group, but also he kind of made a lot of hype around it, and it inflated the market a little bit. Like specifically, not just Charizard cards, but a lot of Pokemon cards, because Logan was bringing it into the forefront of a lot of social media and kind of reignited a lot of demand for those Pokemon cards. So do you think the same thing is maybe this is alluding to your point? Do you think the same thing's happening with these high, uh, like high expensive? Was it at an auction? Whatever. They buy it at a high price, and do you think it's igniting a lot of people to go back into retro gaming collectibles?
I think the problem is that, and this isn't even, I shouldn't say problem, but just the thing is, what's happening right now is that a lot of people are collecting retro games because it was the perfect COVID activity. And over the past year and a half, those games have skyrocketed in price. And I'm one of those people. I've always kind of collected stuff, but over the past year and a half, I got really into it. Like finding a good deal on a game, or just even if it's a game that nobody wants, but it's something that you used to play and you find it really cheap or you find a good deal, it's such a great feeling. And I've really enjoyed doing it. But the problem is that a lot of the stuff that I'm into, like GameCube games, which is one of my favorite consoles of all time, those games are nuts right now. And I was talking to the guy at my local retro game shop, and he was saying that they change the prices on those games daily because they go up that quickly. It'll, even if it's just by $1 or $2, they re-sticker every single GameCube game. And I think the perfect example of that is, maybe I've said this on the podcast before, but I bought Pokemon Coliseum like 6 or 7 years ago, and it was $10. And I bought it, and even then I was like, oh, that's kind of high, just because it was an old GameCube game. I'm like, nobody plays this. Like, it didn't even have that much value then. And I just checked the other day when I was just walking in, and Pokemon Coliseum is pretty rare, but the copy that they had there was $200.
Yeah. Do you still have your Coliseum copy?
I do. I have that. I have a bunch of stuff. I have both of the Metroids. I have Resident Evil 4. I have Super Mario Sunshine, Luigi's Mansion. Like, I have a couple of the rare ones. But I'd like to, expand and buy more. But right now, that I can't afford it.
Yeah, that is insane.
But that's true of not just that's every retro game right now. Even the original Xbox ones, which are worth nothing. Like, nobody collects original Xbox games, and their prices are super low. But even those have gone up by $20 or $30, which is unheard of.
I'm not. I don't have any of my old retro consoles. I don't want to pay, like, even the consoles are kind of high. I don't really feel like paying the prices for those. Do you think the consoles? I'm sorry. Do you think the retro gaming stuff is going to go down because COVID's ending? Like, people will have less time on their hands or things like that, or do you think like this like rise in prices is here? Like, do you think it's going to level out? Do you think it's going to go down? What do you think is going to happen with this market?
It'll definitely level out. This is just a weird bubble that we're in right now. I don't think they're ever going to be like $10 again. I think, I mean, once you start collecting, I think people are just going to want to keep doing it. And there's millions of new people now who are chomping at the bit to get these old games. So the demand is always going to be there, I think. Now that's just something, but I definitely do think it's going to drop off a little bit. It's just, I'd be really curious to check Super Mario 64 when I go back. I'll probably go back to the game store over the next couple days, and I'll check to see, because I guarantee you that game will have at least doubled in price just because of like that sale.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, one thing I wanted to ask you was, like, if you did have any interest in like maybe starting collecting games, like if that was something that appealed to you, and if you would now, if you would put that on hold because of the current prices, or just what's happening with the market.
Yeah, I definitely would like to. I think so. The consoles from like my childhood that are super nostalgic, probably definitely the Nintendo ones, like the Game Boy, GameCube. I didn't have a Wii. I never had. I had PlayStation. I had a PlayStation 1. Didn't have a 2 or 3, but that's not like, I didn't really play it that much. So, and then Xboxes, which I'm okay.
Yeah.
So it would probably be the Nintendo GameCube, and we have, I think, a Game Boy Color here, but I definitely want like either an advanced or a DS or something, just for the nostalgia stuff. But yeah, at this point, like the prices are too high for me to start that kind of thing. I mean, just the console and a couple games is going to run several $100s, if not into like the 4-digit range. So, it's like there might be some like kind of crappy games that nobody cares about that are cheap, but like the ones that are nostalgic, the Pokemon, the Mario, the those ones, the Zeldas, those are going to be expensive.
It's all the ones that aren't garbage. Like there's a
Yeah.
lot of like
Any
trash
any
GameCube games that nobody wants that are like
yeah.
$10, but yeah.
Any game worth its salt or any game like part of those nostalgic franchises is going to be expensive. And then, trying to, I mean, you could start somewhere and I could just like do one game here, one game there, but it's still going to add up over time. And I don't think that's a priority for me right now. If the prices drop, I might change my mind.
What I think is crazy too is that everyone's like, oh, the prices are so high, but these games sell. Every time I go into the game store, it's a whole new set of the GameCube games because they have all sold out. And these are games that are 100, 150, $200 gone. And they're gone within like a couple days. So clearly there's enough demand for this that they can sell them at those prices. And people are like, fuck it. I want to play this game. And it's in the original way to play it. Like I want to plug something in, put the game in. I mean, I know, there's stuff like Dolphin out there that's really good for emulation, but people want to have that original game and they want to, feel how it used to be played, I guess, like the authentic way.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot of people that do like streaming or speed runs or things, and they want to do it on the authentic hardware. Um, like that's super important in those communities. Um,
Speed running especially, because a
yeah,
lot of
because
the hacks or glitches or the shortcuts are only in those original, like they're not in the ROMs, they're in the original copies of that game. And sometimes they're region locked, so like, oh, the Japanese game lets me skip this thing and save 45 seconds or whatever, so they need that copy of it.
yeah, and I think also if you're using an emulation, some leaderboards allow it, but it can really bring into question your run on it, especially if you're like, oh well, he got like the emulator or whatever helped him, in this little part, and it actually gave him a 0.5 second boost or whatever, and then suddenly your run's invalid.
Yeah, there's also a thing with like customizing the controls. I know people have a problem with, because you can, map out different buttons and
Yeah.
then you can maybe do the run a little faster that way or whatever.
Yeah, it's definitely because like I think there was something with uh I don't know, I think it was NES or some controller where like the button spacing on the original controller, I forget what game, what console, whatever, but basically the button mapping was impossible to do a certain number of whatever like input they needed to do. Like it was impossible to go back and forth from the buttons that fast. When you
Mhm.
mapped it on a keyboard, you could do it like perfectly on the emulator or the tool assisted software, but you could not do it on the original hardware. It just was not possible, like the way it was designed. So yeah, if you're doing it on the original hardware, there's definitely like stipulations with in those communities with the runs and stuff.
And I think that's fine. I mean, like them having strict rules about that, because it's not fair if someone else has
Yeah.
that kind of advantage. It just it you could do it like, oh, this is an emulator run, so
Mhm.
like you get the best time in that. But I definitely don't think you should put those two together because they're
Yeah.
totally different in how they play.
Yeah. Like I said, for some games you might be able to, like there might not be any difference, but um uh yeah, using the original hardware is super important on that kind of stuff.
No, for sure. But going back to this game, I think it definitely sets a dangerous precedent for like there being no upward bound on what something can cost for something. I mean, I know that copy is rare, and Wada doesn't really post how much of a game there is in that current state, or with that current grade. So we don't
Mhm.
know how many 9.8 Mario 64s are out there. But I just worry that they're like, oh, it's 1.5 million. That sounds good. And then that game is now unbuyable at any of the stores because it's going to cost $400 or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you think about like baseball cards or something, aren't there like some of those that go for like several millions of dollars?
Some of them do, yeah.
So
Which to me, I'm like, who the fuck is buying baseball cards still?
well, it's like a collectible thing now. Like I
Yeah.
don't think anybody cares about the new baseball cards, but there's like whatever Honus Wagner I think is like a really expensive baseball card, so and it's just rare because it's old. There's not a lot in circulation, and it's just like the famed collectible in that collectible community, like in that collecting community. So
Yeah, no, I remember when I was a kid, they found a Babe Ruth rookie card, and that sold for a stupid amount of money.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean, and Pokemon, going back to the Logan Paul thing, like Pokemon has been on the rise for the past 2 years, and a lot of it having to do with COVID. But like even before then, the prices were skyrocketing, and now with this Logan Paul thing, I think it was around the time that Target stopped selling Pokemon cards because people were getting hurt. They were like trampling over each other to get the new ones because they're worth that much money.
yeah. Do you think people are trying to flip these retro games? Like that's why the inventory is going so fast at these stores.
Yeah, I mean, scalpers got really big over the COVID season. I mean, look at the new set of like the PS5 and the Series X. Like you still can't just go to the store and buy one of those. It's been a year and a half. So, you know, I think they're definitely just trying to turn a profit with this. Most people, I don't think they actually care about the game itself. Like no one, and for me, that's what it is. It's about the attachment of like, oh, I used to play this when I was a kid. I mean, you and I, Chris, we just went to an awesome retro game store and I bought this like Game Boy Color Shrek game that's garbage, but I loved it as a kid and it was like $3. So I was like, oh, that's done deal.
We do have the Game Boy Color. I'm curious if I think it was Game Boy Color. There's a Monsters Inc. game. I'm curious if how much that's going for because I used to play that, and I think that was on Game Boy SP. So I'm not sure if it was. I'm not sure which one it was on. I played it on my SP. I don't know if it fits in a color.
Yeah. I mean, those movie tie-in games, generally speaking, are worth nothing. So
Yeah,
you could probably find it really cheap. Also, because those games are bad. Like they're not.
I can't imagine that it was a game of the year.
No, they're not. They're not good. I think I showed it on one of the earlier podcasts, but I got Spy Kids 3D Game Over for the SP, Game Boy Advance card. Oh, it's the worst, but I love it because it was like it reminds me of when I played it as a kid. So that nostalgia
Yeah.
is a very important factor in all of this.
Yeah. Well, I think okay, so because that game was sealed, I don't think that's any driving factor in this. Because if it was about nostalgia, you're not gonna like you are going to devalue that so much just by cracking that seal.
Yeah.
Or even I'm assuming it's in some container that like so the seal doesn't get harmed.
Mm-hmm.
There's no nostalgia in that. You're gonna buy a game that's already been opened, and that's what you're gonna play if you want to buy these games for nostalgia. You're not going after a sealed game for nostalgia.
Yeah, no, I wasn't being clear about that. I meant like just generally speaking, video game collecting has a lot of. No, you're absolutely right. This Mario 64 thing had nothing to do with that whatsoever. It was all money. Someone had a theory that like it's a whole laundering scheme and they were just trying to pay somebody else the money to like get rid of it.
So that person would have to own that copy and then also be in money laundering.
And then also yeah. It's very unlikely, but I did think it was funny. But who knows what the future of retro game collecting. I mean, as it stands right now, prices are still going up. So if you really don't care about your retro games, sell them right now because this is the best time to do it. You're going to get so much money. If you go through your closet and you're like, oh shit, I have Smash Brothers Melee in here or whatever, like, and you don't care about it, get rid of it.
Yeah, if you don't want to collect it, if you don't want to start a collection, get rid of it. That's not financial advice, but I was gonna say, we went to that store in Virginia, and I went to a store when I was down in Virginia Beach. I think it's kind of cool that like all of these retro stores are like mom and pop kind of shops. Like there's not like a corporate retro gaming store. I think
Yeah,
that's
it's
really
nice
awesome.
because they don't sell the games new anymore. So there's no way to get that product new. But yeah, I love it. It's just everyone at those stores, generally speaking, is super nice and knowledgeable, and they're really fun to have a conversation with because you can be like as nerdy as you want. You could just be like, what's the deal with the price on this and this? Like, I thought this would be more expensive, and they're generally like super helpful. I've only had like one or two experiences where it's been like someone kind of I don't know, they have this air of like, we're better than you kind of thing.
Mhm.
And it was interesting because I was talking to my dad about it, and he was like, when I used to buy games for you, and now when I buy games for your brother, when I went into GameStop, I always had that experience. He's like, like 9 times out of 10, the person in there would be an asshole, and they would be really condescending. And, you know, just because I didn't know anything. And so eventually I stopped going into GameStop. And I hadn't really thought of it from that perspective before, because I would say I'm relatively knowledgeable about video game stuff. But for someone who isn't, that must be a very alienating experience. Like, I've never experienced that, but that must be like so shitty.
I can definitely see how there's I can definitely see that. Like there's definitely workers like that, or they just don't care, you know, or they're just like, I don't want to inform you and all this stuff. Like just like get out of my like buy your stuff, move on. Like I'm just here making minimum wage, trying to get through my shift, you know.
Yeah.
Or there's also people there who are like, I know everything about every game and comic in this shop, and you know, you don't know anything, you know.
That was my problem with comic book shops for a while, and that's why I didn't get into them, because I genuinely think some of the worst people in the world work at comic book shops. Like they're oh my god, they're so rude, and they're like, oh, you don't know about this thing, and all you're trying to do is share this experience with them, and
Hmm.
like, and you know, get into that world and get information. And that's why it took me so. I finally found the place I took you to, which I'll put on blast here. Local Heroes, they're awesome. If you guys are, you know, in that area, Local Heroes is an amazing comic shop. But they are so nice, and they give you, they're like, oh, you might like this comic. And I think you saw they had like the
The
recommendations for the
staff
new ones.
recommendations, yeah.
Yeah, and it was just, it's such a nice environment, and I'm like, this
And
is how it should be.
yeah, they were really friendly. I mean, I walked in there and I know nothing, and they were like, you know, I mean, just general like, hey, can I help you with anything or anything like that? And you know, they let you look around and stuff like that. But I don't know. I feel like I don't want to be like mean with this, and I might cut this out. But I feel like sometimes the people who work at these places are more nerdy and they don't have as much like of the social kind of thing. And so it kind of drives a personality that is rude and is condescending about something they're really passionate about. And like I don't think it's like it should be coming off as passionate, but it comes off condescending.
I don't think that's mean at all to say, because I think there is a certain level of social anxiety that comes with liking things like this. There's usually a type of person that, you know, you get invested in these other worlds or these other games or these other comics, you know, diving into that generally because you're not super socially inept, or you have problems talking to people in real life, I guess. So when you put a bunch of people that are like that working together in a shop, it can make for a very unwelcoming environment for people who are new. And that's why a lot of these shops, even stuff like GameStop, which is pretty common, are now dying.
Yeah, and I think that's the important part there you said is like people who are new. Like if you're pretty knowledgeable about like gaming and stuff, you can hold a conversation and they can hold a conversation with you. And not everyone is like that either. Like you said, there's examples where they're, you know, really great people. But I think the community has a larger percentage of people like that.
Yeah, no, for
But I
sure.
think my main point was I'm glad, not that I'm glad that GameStop's dying, but I'm glad stores like that, like you have more local mom and pop shops that have, you know, it's not like corporate wash, and you know, it's a nicer experience in my opinion.
Yeah. With that though, if you know, the opposite side of that coin is that they can charge $200 for a GameCube game.
That's true. Well,
But it,
they have to compete with online markets too, so it kind of
yeah.
levels it out across the board.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they check. You know, they told me, they're like, we go on eBay, we go on there's video game sites for like tracking the average of how much something sold for on multiple sites. I don't remember what the actual website is, but they check that. There's all these things that they factor in, and then they create a price that they deem fair. So I mean, it's still a good price. It's just so much money
Yeah.
right now. So who knows what they're going to do. And I should go back and say something too. Not everyone who works at a store like that is like that. A lot of my experiences have been really good. And yeah, whether that be video games or comics or whatever. But they're like someone, again, because I know a lot, someone who may not, even people that I liked in my experience, it could be the total opposite for a newbie. So people who don't go into those stores, I totally understand.
Well, you want to switch over to Black Widow?
Yeah, definitely.
Not a review.
No, not a review.
I haven't seen it yet.
Should
So
I
that'll
give
come.
any thoughts on it at all, or should we just stick to how much it made?
Yeah, we're gonna talk about the box office debut and probably stick mostly to box office. You can give your spoiler free like general thoughts on it if you want.
Okay.
I am gonna say we'll talk about uh probably Loki and definitely Black Widow next week.
Mhm.
I haven't seen either, so I need to get caught up on Loki, which I can do during the week. And
I am
Black Widow.
so excited to talk about Loki. I cannot wait, and that's not how I feel about it, but I'm just very excited to discuss.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of guest hosts we could have on to talk about it. So
For sure.
Next week should be a really great episode from that regards. If you like Marvel and you like our thoughts on Marvel stuff, definitely tune in.
Yeah.
Like I said, I haven't seen it. I kind of want to tell why, because I think it's a little ridiculous. The movie theater here isn't playing Black Widow for like it's like more than like a week and a half or whatever, right? So, and I don't feel like driving 45 minutes, so I'm gonna have to stream it.
Yeah,
Like
that's
there's
a lot
like
of money.
there's an AMC like 45 minutes away that's playing it this weekend. Like ideally Friday would be my day to watch it because Monday through Thursday is kind of rough, and Friday would be a great day to watch it, but that's the exact day they're stopping showing it. So
yeah, it's a long time to drive. I mean, if you go to an AMC, you might be able to do IMAX because usually the AMC theaters have like an IMAX theater in it.
that's true, but I think like the time to drive up there, you're still like for 2 tickets, it's going to cost me the same amount as to stream it on Disney Plus. You know, the food, gas, all that stuff. It's just I'm gonna go to the dollar store and get some Kit Kats and a soda and just have a movie night at home. We do want to do the movie theater experience because we're vaccinated and a lot of restrictions are up and stuff. But
this is the first movie I've seen in theaters since the last movie I saw was The Invisible Man, which was right before COVID hit. And then that was the last thing I saw, like until now. And it was really weird being back in the theater. It was such a surreal moment.
This was going to be our first one back, but we were just too tired the other night and too busy during the week. So I think, don't kill me, but it might be Jungle Cruise that we see. That might be our first one back.
Oof. I don't know. Maybe it's good. That was mean. It could be good. I don't know. Yeah, no. Well, I guess that leads into the main topic, which is the box office. And what I thought, because I saw it on a Sunday, which usually is pretty busy for movies, and there was like 2 people in there, so I was like, oh, maybe people aren't ready yet to come back. But it sounds like that might be different if you want to kind of talk about some of the numbers.
So they didn't list a number for was it Rise of Skywalker? Let me pull up the article. Yeah, here it is. They didn't give any numbers for Rise of Skywalker, so I'm not sure exactly how much that made before COVID. But for domestic debuts, opening weekend, Fast and Furious a couple weeks ago had the largest one since Rise of Skywalker, which was in 2019, pre-pandemic, and then Black Widow just beat out Fast 9 for that record. So Fast 9 had 70 million domestic opening weekend, and Black Widow had 80 like estimates. That 80 does not include Disney Plus streaming.
Yeah, which we were talking about before, I think is going to be interesting if that's a new thing now. If on Box Office Mojo or wherever you're looking, like all the sites that have the box office returns, I wonder if that's going to be a new category. It's going to be, domestic, foreign, and then have the worldwide total, and then underneath it's like streaming service, however much it made there, Disney Plus, whatever. That might be a new factor.
They listed it was 60 million, but that was international for opening weekend, and they didn't break it down, so we don't really know how much it made. It could have made 100 million domestic opening weekend if you include streaming and theatrical releases, but Disney's the one that said 60 million from Disney Plus streaming, but we don't know. They didn't break it down farther than that, so it could have broke 100 million, but just from theatrical releases, and that's what all these numbers come from, the 70 million for Fast 9 and 80 million for Black Widow. It's theatrical opening weekend debuts, box offices.
I wonder if more people actually saw it too, because our tickets when we went to go see it were discounted. And I wonder if that was because they're trying to get people back in. So those numbers might not even reflect how many people actually saw it compared to like the normal ticket sale numbers.
So when we were gonna go Sunday night. Yeah, last night. We're recording on Monday. We were gonna go see it last night on a Sunday, and the tickets, we looked. We're gonna order them online, but we weren't sure if we were like really like feeling up to it, which we weren't. Well, we had a busy day, you know.
Oh yeah, no.
But it was gonna be $25 for two. So after the ticket price, tax, just like that online fee or whatever, it was going to be $25 for two, so about $12.50 for two people, which seems kind of pre-pandemic levels to me, like $12-13 for a movie ticket, and this was at a Regal.
That's interesting. And it wasn't like D-box seats or like they weren't special tickets, they were just normal, right?
This so I don't think it didn't give us the option to like pick seats. I don't know if that was because we had to like progress farther in the checkout like system or whatever, or they just don't assign seats there. I don't know. But yeah, this was just like general admission tickets to Black Widow on a Sunday night at 9 p.m.
Interesting. Ours were, I think we might have had like the matinee discount too, but ours was $6, which I thought was pretty reasonable. We didn't get any food or anything. So
did you go like at matinee times?
I think I guess we did, because it was like 11:45. So yeah, that would have been like the morning prices. So that, I guess that makes sense, but it's still like even the matinee price I didn't think was $6. Like that seemed pretty cheap.
Did you go to a local place or like a more chain?
I went to Regal.
Okay. Well, so we're comparing, maybe it's different markets, but yeah, I don't know.
The movie tickets in New York are like $20 each. It's crazy.
Yeah, well, this is a movie theater. It's not like super populated. It's not like in the city at all. Barely the suburbs, so.
Oh yeah, we're in, bumfuck nowhere. So it would make sense that especially because there's another theater chain that also serves food. And they have, comfier seats or whatever. And the Regal that's there, they haven't really adopted that model, so it's still, they do the assigned seats now, but the seats are still the same old ones. So I think it's more because now it's kind of a family thing again to go out and do it, and if you can like have a meal and have your kids shut up for 2 hours, it's like that's perfect.
Yeah. How was the experience? We haven't talked about that on the podcast yet. You said it was a little weird, but
it was strange for a minute, but then it kind of felt normal again. Like walking into the theater at first and smelling that popcorn, like that, that like the stained carpet and the popcorn smell, like all
carpet that's like it's got like that pattern to it. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, usually there's like little stars or planets or whatever on it,
like the swirly things.
It's got the swirly things, yeah. So all of that, it was just this surreal moment of being like, holy shit, I'm back. And then after that, once we took our seats and the 8,000 trailers ended, it felt kind of normal again. But the experience itself was nice because I don't like going to the movies when there's a ton of people in there. I like it when there's, 2 or 3 people, and that's exactly what this was. But it was nice. It was really nice to have that sort of communal experience again of, not too many people, but people together watching a movie. It was fun.
Did you go with your parents or family or brother?
I just went with my brother. My parents don't
Okay.
care about the MCU stuff.
Well, I was just wondering if it was like more of a, you had a couple more people with you sharing the experience.
Right. Yeah. No, the last movie we all saw together was Wreck-It Ralph 2. So that was a while ago. That was probably 2018, I think that movie came out. Either that or like early 2019. And I feel bad that was the last movie we all saw together because that movie sucks. But it's really, and I love the first Wreck-It Ralph, but that movie is bad. It is so bad. Sorry, that's not what we're talking about.
Did you have to wear a mask?
You didn't have to. I chose to
Okay.
just because I don't know who else is vaccinated, and I still feel a little weird about it. So we just threw it up, and we had it on the whole time, and it didn't really feel that uncomfortable or anything.
Yeah. Well, I guess I wasn't asking about your thing. I was just asking like, because there's still some like businesses around here that require it. Where did I go? Domino's. I went to Domino's last night and they required it when I picked up my food.
I noticed that when I was up by you last like a couple weeks ago, is that they are much more strict than they are down here. Like
Yeah.
a lot of the restrictions here have been lifted, and it was actually a night. It was like a breath of fresh air to go in and see a bunch of masked people again. I was like, oh, this is nice.
Yeah, we went when we hung out in the city, there was a couple of businesses that mandated it still.
Yeah, and it makes me feel safer, honestly. Even though
Yeah.
if you're vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask. That's like CDC regulation. That's not like Trump on Twitter being like, "Oh, you can't do that." No, that's like the CDC said it's fine, so I trust them.
Mhm.
But yeah, it still feels we've had them for so long. It's like a safety net. Like it's like a blanket. It feels safe.
I will say like sometimes I go to the grocery store without it and like when I don't take it with me because I've gotten so used to being like, okay, phone, wallet, keys, mask.
Yeah,
Now when it's just phone, wallet, keys again, I like know like I'm forgetting a mask because when you forget a mask like during like a year ago, you're like, oh shit, I need to walk back to my car and grab that. So when you don't
yeah.
have that with you now, I kind of like get like a panicky kind of thing like for a split second because I'm like, oh, I need a mask.
No, I know
Like,
exactly how
well,
you feel. And yeah, I think that they're probably a little less strict at some of the other theaters, but that one was just like, hey, we would really prefer you do this, and I was like, okay, that's fine. Um,
do you want to
you know,
give some general thoughts on it, or I'm sorry, what were you gonna say?
oh no, I was. It's funny you say that because I was actually gonna say I was gonna give my general thoughts, but I think I'm gonna wait.
Think you're gonna wait?
I think I'm gonna wait. I don't even really because I want to save all of it. Sometimes I do that. I bring something up for the next week, and then I feel like I'm just repeating myself with a
Hmm.
lot of my points. So I'm not gonna say. I'm gonna leave that for next week or the week after when we finally review it.
Okay, I think we should do like a spoiler free section for both Black Widow and then Loki, and then go more in depth. And that might be like that could take up a whole episode, I think.
For sure. Yeah, we could definitely do a whole episode on that. Yeah,
I
I'll
don't I
say
don't I haven't seen them, but those are like heavy hitter topics. So
yeah, the one thing I'll say about both of them really is that there's going to be a lot to talk about. So I think we're going to have plenty of stuff to go into about certain aspects of it that people may feel strongly about. I'm really trying to not give how I feel about this movie. Um, but yeah, I'll say I wasn't excited for it going into it, and that wasn't the movie's fault. It just I was excited for it when it was supposed to come out a year ago, and then they kept pushing it back, and I was like, oh, 2 months from now I get to go see it. Oh, 4 months from now it's going to be on streaming service, and then they did it so much that at the end I was just fucking exhausted. I was like, I don't even care about this anymore.
yeah. Well, if you want to save that, then we can get into recommendations.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. You want to go ahead and go first?
Sure. I'm gonna recommend Valheim again. I'm just kidding. Uh,
That's fine.
I've been playing a lot of that, so I was like, when I was thinking about like what my recommendation was gonna be, I was like, what do I do? Because I can't spend Valheim like all the time. um, so Shark Week. It's actually Shark Week as we're recording this. So when this goes live, it's probably the end of Shark Week. But go back, like Discovery Plus has a bunch of movies and shows and stuff like Hannah's been binging it, and so I'll walk in and like it's a whole new thing. Like, but there was a really cool, I don't remember what it was called, but there was like they were doing like tiger shark and great white like surveillance or whatever, and they were off the coast of Australia, and there was like 15 tiger sharks like swarming around, and they looked like really pretty because like the stripes on them was really pretty, and one had like this massive great white shark attack scar on it, which is like
Mhm.
kind of sad, but
Yeah.
like it was like really odd because they were like apparently there's like a conflict between like tiger sharks, great white shark. It's like I don't know. Shark Week is fucking awesome, so I'm gonna recommend it. There should still be stuff on Discovery Plus. So
That's yeah, that's definitely a great recommendation. I was telling you guys too, right? I used to love Shark Week. Um a lot of those Discovery shows were pretty good too. Like I used to be obsessed with the Loch Ness Monster, and they would
mhm.
always have specials on that, like, oh, is it real? And then every time they would show one, there'd be a little bit more information just to keep you hooked, even though they
Yeah,
didn't find shit. Like,
I will say be careful what you click on if you are like Hannah doesn't really like a lot of this stuff where it's like this is how we're fucking up the environment. There's a couple of those kind of shows and movies, like documentary type stuff. So just be careful if you're not ready for some of the heavy hitters, like emotional stuff.
yeah, for sure.
But and
Um,
I was gonna say I almost always forget like when Shark Week is. So like here's your reminder.
I feel like
You're
it
like
was like
me.
5 times a year. Like I always felt like it was constantly Shark Week. Sometimes they ran out of programming. Like Mythbusters ended their season. They were like, "Fuck, we need more sharks."
Yeah, after Mythbusters and how it's made reruns, you catch Shark Week.
And Cash Cab.
Yeah.
Uh, that's my recommendation is Cash Cab. Yeah, so my recommendation this week is going to be something that you and I actually both experienced. Like was it 2 weekends ago, 1 weekend ago, whatever it was. Which is a Korean shopping mart. It's called H Mart. I don't know if you guys have one near you. We don't, but we were visiting a friend and there was one. Actually, no, Chris, you said there was one by you, right? You said you found
There
one.
is. It's not, it's kind of a far drive, like if I was going to go grocery shopping from my home, but I can pass by it on my commute from work. So like if I come home from work and I want to go grocery shopping, like actually I'll be in the office later this week and I'll get paid that day, which is usually when I do my grocery shopping.
Mhm.
So I might stop by.
Yeah, and I mean, the amount of stuff they have in there is crazy because it's a Korean mart, but it's not just Korean food. It's Japanese food, it's Chinese food. It's basically just an Asian mart.
Yeah, there's
Um,
Hispanic, there's also Hispanic stuff and there's like an Americanized aisle, like
yeah, it's like
pasta or
kind of,
whatever.
yeah, they have like all the stuff, donuts and shit. Um, but yeah, it was really we bought so much food over that weekend, just tried a bunch of stuff, mostly candy. But there was this like acorn jelly that they had there that nobody liked, but it was nice to try it out and try new things.
Yeah, that tasted like you were chewing on a 2x4.
It was like a tree spat in your mouth. It was kind of gross.
Well, I looked
Uh,
up. It's interesting to try things like that because it's like it's a new like I've never tried anything like that before. And you look like I looked up how it was made because I'm interested in the food science and stuff. And they just literally take the starch out of acorns and make it, and like that's how they make the jelly. Like I guess they have to. There's something they have to do process it so it's not poisonous or whatever. Or there's some chemical in it that's like not good for us, so they have to process the starch out and mix it with water and all that. But it's really cool to understand that stuff and try it, even if you don't like it.
it seems like it would be more expensive than that, like based on the process they have to go through. Like there was a shit ton of jelly in there, and it was like $6.
Well, I wonder like what the like how much starch was actually in there because I don't think it takes a lot of starch to make that jelly.
Yeah, it might not. I'm yeah, I'm amazed that anything in a grocery store is as cheap as it is just for the process of which it has to go through. But yeah, we also I mean I actually tried it a couple weeks earlier, but mochi is like my new favorite thing, which for anyone who doesn't know, it's basically like these little ice cream balls wrapped in dough, which sounds just as amazing as it is, I promise. But there's a green tea version that I fucking love it so much.
Yeah, I my favorite is mango, but green tea's up there. Like you could never go wrong with the green tea ones.
Yeah, they're all super delicious. Actually, my brother said the chocolate one kind of sucks. He was like, it doesn't hold together or something, and it isn't very good.
There's a berry one I didn't like. I can't remember what one it was. We get the assorted variety packs, and so that's where we pick and choose like what we like. So
Yeah, yeah, that's the way to go for sure. I didn't like the original like red bean one was kind of,
I don't know
I
if I've
didn't
had
love
that
it.
one.
But yeah, I would definitely recommend everyone try. I would probably start with the matcha, the green tea flavor, because it's sort of the most quote unquote traditional. And then see if you like that, and then go from there. I ate so many of them. I ate like a whole package. There's like 6 of them in there. I ate all of them.
I mean, they're kind of small. It's okay.
Yeah, that's how I justified it in my brain. I was like, oh, these can't have any calories. They're so tiny.
What else did we try from there that was kind of interesting?
We had
Tomato
the
candy.
tomato candy, yeah, which was kind of like sucking on a packet of ketchup that was hard.
It was like very sweet, but like it was like you were just eating a tomato, but like candy form.
Yeah, like
It's
a little
it's
bit.
exactly what it says it is.
Yeah, I don't know why we were shocked that it tasted like that. Like,
But I never had it before, so
we had the ginger snaps, which were really
oh yeah,
good.
like ginger chews.
Yeah, those were. Oh yeah, ginger chews. I guess those are different from the snaps. And then what else? We had the. I want to say we had the high chews, but those are kind of everywhere. Like, you can buy those at
Yeah,
7-Eleven. Um, and the best thing that we did, I don't even know how so we made
yeah,
the ramen from Parasite.
the
So for anyone who,
Ramdam.
yeah, the ramdam. So for anyone who hasn't seen it, there's a scene in the movie where there's the I guess the housekeeper in the movie is tasked to make uh ramdam, which is these 2 packets of ramen put together. It's chapaghetti and niyoguri, and they call it chapaguri or ramdam. And in the movie, they also cut up sirloin steak and they throw it in to kind of make the dish a little bit. It's also a metaphor for the movie, and who fucking cares? It's fine. But we made that, and it was really good. I thought it was delicious.
Yeah. Joey made the steak, which was really good, and I did the niyoguri, and you did the chapaghetti.
Mm-hmm. So one was like
And
kind of a
yeah,
teriyaki flavor, and the other one was spicy seafood, I believe.
yeah, it was spicy seafood was the niyoguri, and the chapaghetti is like a udon noodle with uh yeah, teriyaki umami flavor, and
Yeah.
then you mix them together. I actually I because I got the 4 pack to take home. I've tried them each separately.
Do you like them separate?
The best is together, in my opinion. Um, the chapaghetti is pretty good, like on its own. Um, I will say I didn't really like the niyoguri. It's very seafoody. It's
Yeah.
spicy, which I like the spice. Like you got the spice when we mix them together, but the seafood on its own, like the chapaghetti stuff, kind of mellows it out. So it kind
Yeah.
of hits you harder.
When we put it together, like the initial smell, I was like, oh, this is gonna taste like a bucket of fish. And then we put it together, and it totally mellowed out the flavor.
Hmm.
It didn't taste like fish at all. So I was curious by itself. I was like, this might be a little gross.
Yeah, the
Um,
I will say the niyoguri one, not that great on its own.
yeah, it was also a much different way of cooking. Usually I just put it in the microwave, but they did like the stovetop thing, and it came in these little circles instead of the normal ramen that you get in like a Americhan or whatever fucking brand you normally get at the grocery store. And the stuff inside, there was like 4 packets, and it was just a lot more to it. A little more complicated to make, but it was really good.
Yeah, it was. I think it was really good. It was pretty easy. I mean, you, I've done them in the microwave like since I've been here and eaten a couple just from the microwave. Um, but
Yeah, we definitely put in too much water the first time, and we overcooked it a little bit, just because we were like still a little unsure as to like how they were going to be made and like when to put in the ingredients, because we didn't fucking read because we're morons. But I mean, it still turned out fine, and with the steak too, it was so good.
the steak was good in it. There's a binging with Babish episode that we watched as we ate it instead of before we cooked it.
We watched him like strain it out and then mix it together. We were like, oh, we should have probably done that.
I also think we could have put the base seasoning and the vegetables and all that stuff, all the packets in immediately, which isn't what I normally do, but we could have probably waited until we had like the right level of water to mix it. Well,
Yeah,
the vegetables you have to cook probably because they're like freeze dried or whatever,
yeah, for
dehydrated
sure.
or whatever. But
But yeah, that was super delicious. So yeah, I would just look up for anyone out there, like just type in H Mart and see if you have one near you, because they are really, really cool. I think anyone would, even if you don't buy anything, just like seeing a different type of like a different culture's grocery store, I think is just really interesting. All the live seafood that they have in there. Like it was really fun.
yeah, I was gonna say if you don't have an H Mart, you can try like any other like we had an Indian Mart that was like close to my apartment when I lived in Philly, like in the city. And like that was nice to go there. I mean, like there was like an American Isle and stuff, but they also had stuff I'd never seen before. So this
Yeah,
is the whitest shit ever.
really is. I love trying new, because you never know. Like I love mochi now. That's like one of my favorite things. I
Yeah.
had no idea it existed a month ago. So, you know, that's my other just advice for this podcast. Spread your wings. You never know when you're gonna
Yeah,
find something you like.
that's definitely like expand your horizons is definitely like the point of that.
For sure. For sure. Um, yeah, I think we're probably at about time. You want to wrap it up, say our goodbyes.
Yeah, so hope you guys like this episode. Like I said, next week we'll talk about Loki and Black Widow, hopefully. Not set in stone, but it's looking like I can get that stuff done in time. If you like this video, leave a like, leave a comment if you want to talk to us, or send us an email. um, Subscribe if you want to see more, and ring the bell for notifications, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.